After our family dinner, I checked my account and it was empty. My $45,000 had completely disappeared. The phone screen showed a balance that chilled me to the bone. $0 and 0 cents. 38 years of work, sacrifice, and saving every penny vanished in a single night. My son Jerome Patterson laughed from my own sofa in my small shotgun house in New Orleans. A laugh I had never heard before, cruel and ruthless. "We needed this more than you, Mama," he said with a smile I didn't recognize. "Old folks like you don't need that much money anyway." His wife Monica nodded from beside him with that calculating expression that had always made me uneasy. "It's better off in the hands of people who are actually going to use it," she added, examining her freshly manicured nails as if we were discussing the weather instead of my life savings. I took a deep breath, feeling a tremor take over my hands. The same hands that had scrubbed hotel rooms for 38 years to build that security. The same hands that had raised Jerome alone after his father died. The same hands that were now shaking with a mixture of rage and something else, something Monica and Jerome couldn't see yet. I picked up my purse and looked at them with a calm that surprised even myself. "Then you won't care about what comes next," I murmured, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. They kept laughing as if my words were a joke, as if a 62-year-old black woman from Treme had no power, no resources, no ability to fight back. Jerome slapped his knee and turned to Monica. "Did you hear that? Mama thinks she's gonna do something." Monica giggled, that high-pitched sound that had always grated on my nerves. "What are you gonna do, Dolores? Call the police? You gave us the money yourself. We watched you transfer it." But at that precise moment, a thunderous crash shook the entire house. The front door of my shotgun house burst open with such force that the old hinges groaned in protest. To understand how I got to this moment, I need to go back a few hours, back to when this nightmare began, with what I thought was going to be a miracle. It all started that humid October morning when Jerome called me after 4 months of complete silence. 4 months of no visits, no calls, no texts. 4 months of me lying awake at night wondering what I'd done to deserve being cut off from my grandchildren. His voice sounded different over the phone, softer, almost regretful. "Mama, Monica and I want to invite you to dinner tonight at your place. We'll cook. You just relax. It's time to fix things between us." After months of fighting over his father's inheritance, after his shouts demanding my money because he claimed he deserved it, those words sounded like heavenly music to my tired heart. My mother's heart filled with hope that felt almost painful in its intensity. Perhaps my son had finally reflected on all the pain he had caused. Perhaps he'd remembered the values I'd tried to teach him growing up in this city where survival itself was an act of resistance. I spent the entire afternoon getting ready, something I hadn't done since my husband Thomas's funeral 6 years ago. I put on the emerald green dress that Jerome loved so much when he was a child, the one he always said made me look like a queen. I remembered him at 7 years old, touching the fabric with wonder, telling me I was the most beautiful mama in all of New Orleans. I searched my jewelry box for the gold cross necklace my late husband gave me for our 25th anniversary. Thomas had saved for months to buy it, working overtime at the docks, and when he fastened it around my neck, he'd whispered, "This is to remind you that our love is as eternal as faith." Each time I touched it, I could still feel his warm hands on my shoulders. As I brushed my silver hair in front of the bathroom mirror, I remembered the words my own mother told me before she died. "Dolores, children sometimes get lost along the way, but true love always brings them back home." Those words had given me strength during the 4 darkest months of my life when my own son threatened to cut off contact with my grandchildren, little Isaiah and Amara, if I didn't hand over my money. When he'd said those words, standing in this very living room, I'd felt something break inside me, but I'd clung to Mama's wisdom, believing that blood would win out over greed. They arrived promptly at 6:00 the evening. Jerome carried flowers, purple irises, my favorites. The same flowers Thomas used to bring me every payday. Monica carried a bag full of ingredients for my favorite dish, crawfish étouffée with dirty rice, the kind I'd taught her to make when she first married Jerome 10 years ago. Back when I thought she genuinely loved my son, before I saw how her eyes lingered on price tags and bank statements. Everything seemed perfect, just like the old days when Jerome visited me every Sunday after church with his family. When we'd sit on this very porch drinking sweet tea and watching the neighbors pass by, when my grandchildren would run around the yard chasing each other while Jerome told me about his week. During dinner, Jerome told me about his landscaping business, about how he wanted to expand to the Garden District, maybe even uptown. His eyes shone with the passion I remembered from when he was young and dreamed of creating beautiful spaces for people to enjoy. He talked about hiring more workers, buying better equipment, landing contracts with the big estates along Street Charles Avenue. Monica, for the first time in months, asked about my health, about my friends from the church choir. She even complimented my new reading glasses, saying they made me look distinguished. The étouffée was perfect, rich and spicy, just the way I'd taught her. We laughed together like we used to, and for those few hours, I let myself believe that my family was healing, that the ugliness of the past 4 months had been a terrible detour, but not our final destination. "Mama," Jerome said to me as I served dessert, bread pudding with whiskey sauce, his father's favorite. "I'm so sorry for everything that happened these past few months. I know I was very hard on you. It's just that business has been bad. We have so many debts, and when Daddy died, I thought you could help us more." His eyes filled with tears that seemed so real. My heart completely melted. I reached across the table and took his hand, feeling the calluses from his work, remembering when those hands were small enough to fit entirely in my palm. "My son," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Your father and I saved that money for our golden years, for emergencies, for security. But if you really need it, we can talk about a loan in a fair way for everyone. We can draw up papers, set up a payment plan, do this the right way." The smile he gave me in that moment confirmed what I wanted so desperately to believe, that I had made the right decision, that my family was healing. That blood was thicker than the bitterness that had poisoned us for months. It was after dessert that everything changed. Jerome and Monica exchanged a look that I couldn't interpret at the time, but which I now understand perfectly. It was the look of two predators about to attack their prey, the look of people who'd rehearsed this moment, planned every word, every gesture. Jerome cleared his throat and pulled his phone from his pocket. The casual way he did it should have warned me, but I was too full of hope to see the danger. "Mama, before we talk about the loan, there's something you need to do for us," he said, and his voice had changed. It no longer sounded pleading or regretful. It sounded demanding, entitled, like he was telling an employee to complete a task. "I need you to transfer the money tonight. Everything. It's urgent." I felt a shiver run down my spine despite the warm October humidity that filled my house. The sweetness of a few minutes ago had evaporated like morning fog off the Mississippi. "Jerome, son, I don't understand the rush. We can go to the bank tomorrow, talk to the manager, do things properly. Mr. Williams at Liberty Bank has known our family for 30 years. He'll help us set something up that protects everyone." "No, Mama," Monica interrupted, her voice sharp as a knife. The pretense of warmth had vanished completely from her face. "It has to be now. Tonight. We have an investment opportunity that can't wait another day. If we don't act immediately, we lose everything." She stood up from the table and approached me with her phone in her hand, moving with the confidence of someone who'd already won. "You have the bank app on your phone, right? It's very easy. Just a few clicks, and it's done. We can all go back to being a family again." My maternal instinct began to fight against my intuition. Something wasn't right. The shift had been too sudden, too complete. But Jerome was my son. For 37 years, he had been my pride, my joy, my reason for working those double shifts at the hotel. for sacrificing everything to give him opportunities I never had. The child who ran to hug me when I got home from work, his little arms wrapping around my tired legs. The young man who promised to take care of me when his father died, who stood beside me at the funeral and swore he'd never let me be alone. How could I distrust him now? How could I look at my own child and see a stranger? It's just that $45,000 is a lot of money, Jerome, I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay calm. Your father and I took decades to save that amount. I worked double shifts at the hotel, cleaned rooms until my back ached and my hands were raw. I sold my grandmother's wedding ring when you had that medical emergency as a child, when you needed that surgery and the insurance wouldn't cover it all. That money represents a lifetime of sacrifices. Jerome sighed impatiently and sat next to me on the sofa, the same sofa where I'd rocked him to sleep as a baby, where we'd read books together when he was learning to read, where he'd cried in my arms when his father died. He took my hands, but his touch no longer comforted me the way it once had. His grip was too tight, too insistent. Mama, don't you trust me? I'm your son. I would never hurt you. He paused, and his voice hardened slightly, taking on an edge that made my blood run cold. Besides, technically, part of that money should be mine from Daddy's inheritance. He would have wanted me to have it. There it was, the real reason for this dinner, for the flowers, for the fake tears, for the crawfish étouffée made just the way I liked it. Jerome had never come to reconcile with me. He had come to finish the job he started 4 months ago when he first demanded my money, when he'd stood in this living room and told me I was being selfish for not immediately handing over everything Thomas and I had worked for. Jerome, we've already talked about this, I said, trying to keep my voice steady even as my heart hammered in my chest. Your father left everything to me because he knew I would manage it well, because he trusted me to take care of our family's future. When I die, you and Kenneth will inherit everything equally. But while I'm alive, that money is mine. It's my security, my independence. Jerome's mask fell completely. He jumped to his feet and began to pace back and forth in my small living room, his footsteps heavy on the old wooden floors. The floorboards creaked under his weight, the same boards where he'd taken his first steps, where we danced together at his high school graduation party. I can't wait for you to die, Mama, he said, and those words hit me like a physical blow. I need the money now. My business is going bankrupt. I'm drowning in debt. They're going to foreclose on my house, repossess my trucks. Don't you understand that your own son needs you? Monica came up behind him and put her hand on my shoulder. Her perfectly manicured nails dug slightly into my flesh through the thin fabric of my dress. Dolores, let's be realistic here. You're 62 years old. What do you need so much money for? You've paid off this house. You've raised your children. You have your Social Security, your small pension. It's time for you to help the next generation build their lives. Besides, Jerome added, stopping directly in front of me, towering over me in a way that felt deliberately threatening. If you don't help us now, I won't be able to keep bringing Isaiah and Amara to visit you. Monica thinks you're not a good influence on them with all these selfish attitudes. She thinks maybe it's better if they don't see you anymore. The emotional blackmail hit me like a slap across the face. My grandchildren, little Isaiah with his gap-toothed smile, and Amara with her wild curls and infectious laugh, were the light of my eyes. The threat of never seeing them again, of missing them grow up, of being erased from their lives, broke my heart into pieces. But something inside me, a voice that sounded very much like my late husband Thomas, whispered not to give in, not to let fear make me betray myself. All right, I finally murmured, my voice barely audible. I watched their faces light up with triumph, with greed, with the certainty that they'd won. But not all of it. I can transfer $5,000 tonight, and we can discuss the rest when you show me a real business plan with numbers, with guarantees, with something in writing. Jerome and Monica looked at each other again, and this time the silent communication was crystal clear. They hadn't come here for $5,000. They hadn't come here to negotiate. They'd come for everything, and they weren't leaving without it. "That's not enough, Mama," Jerome said, his voice taking on a dangerously calm quality that reminded me of the moments before a summer storm breaks over the city. "It's either the $45,000 tonight, all of it, or tomorrow I'm going to a lawyer to contest Daddy's will. I have witnesses who can testify that he wasn't in his right mind when he made it, that you influenced him to leave everything to you, that you manipulated a dying man." My world tilted on its axis. My own son was threatening me with a legal battle built on lies about his father, about the man who'd loved us both more than life itself. "Jerome, you know that's not true. Your father was perfectly clear-minded until the day he died. The doctors, the nurses, everyone can testify to that. You were there. You saw him." "Were we, though?" Monica interjected smoothly, like she'd been waiting for her cue. Memory is such a funny thing. People remember what they want to remember, especially in court. And legal battles are so expensive, Dolores. Even if you win, you'll spend tens of thousands on lawyers. Wouldn't it be easier to just help your son now? The threat was clear as the Mississippi on a calm day. They would drag me through court, drain my savings on legal fees, destroy my reputation, and paint me as a greedy old woman who'd stolen from her own family. Even if I won, I'd lose everything fighting them. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and tried to find the boy I'd raised somewhere in this stranger's face. "When did you become this person, Jerome? When did money become more important than family, than integrity, than the values your father and I tried to teach you?" "Don't talk to me about values," he snapped, his face contorting with anger. "You and Daddy always preached about honesty and hard work, but where did it get you? Living in this old shotgun house in Treme while white folks half as smart live in mansions uptown. I'm tired of struggling, Mama. I'm tired of being broke while everyone around me succeeds. This is my chance, and you're going to give it to me." Something in his words, in his entitlement, in his complete lack of remorse, made a decision crystallize in my mind. A decision I'd been moving toward for months without fully realizing it. "All right," I said quietly, reaching for my phone with hands that trembled just slightly. "I'll transfer the money, but I need to use the bathroom first. This is a big decision, and I need a moment to compose myself." Monica's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You can use the bathroom after. Do the transfer first." "I'm 62 years old with a bladder that doesn't work like it used to," I said firmly, standing up and clutching my purse. "Unless you want me to have an accident on my own sofa, I suggest you let me use my own bathroom in my own house." Jerome waved his hand dismissively. "Fine, but make it quick. And leave your purse here." "I need my pills," I lied smoothly. "My blood pressure medication is in there. All this stress is making my heart race." They reluctantly let me go, and I walked slowly to the bathroom at the back of my shotgun house, my heart pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. Once inside with the door locked, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, but I didn't open my banking app. Instead, I opened my messages and typed quickly to the group chat I'd created earlier that day, the one Jerome and Monica knew nothing about. "They're demanding all the money right now, threatening to contest the will. I'm going to do the transfer. Get ready." Within seconds, 3 responses came through. "Kenneth, we're outside. Ready when you are. Detective Rousseau, units in position, recording equipment active. Antoine Dubois, document everything. Stay calm, we've got you." You see, I wasn't the naive old woman Jerome and Monica thought I was. When Jerome had first started demanding money 4 months ago, when the threats had begun, I'd done something they never expected. I'd gone to my younger son Kenneth, the one who'd stayed true to the values we'd taught him, the one who worked as a paramedic, saving lives, instead of scheming to steal from his own mother. Together, we'd gone to the police. Together, we'd consulted with Antoine Dubois, one of the best criminal defense attorneys in New Orleans. Together, we'd set a trap. For the past month, ever since Jerome's tone in his phone calls had shifted from angry to calculating, I'd known this moment was coming. Antoine had warned me that Jerome and Monica were likely planning something, that their sudden silence, followed by this dinner invitation, fit a pattern he'd seen before in financial exploitation cases. So we'd prepared. I'd given Kenneth a key to my house weeks ago. I'd installed a small recording device in my living room, hidden in plain sight among my late husband's jazz records. I'd documented every threat, every demand, every cruel word Jerome had spoken to me over these months. And when Jerome called this morning with his fake reconciliation, I'd known exactly what was happening. I'd called Detective Rousseau, a good man I'd known from church, whose mother I'd been friends with before she passed. I'd called Kenneth. I'd called Antoine, and we'd set everything in motion. I took a deep breath, touched the gold cross at my neck, and whispered a prayer Thomas had taught me years ago. Lord, give me strength not to hate, but give me courage not to accept evil either. Then I flushed the toilet for effect, ran the water, and walked back into my living room where Jerome and Monica waited like vultures circling prey. All right, I said, sitting back down and pulling out my phone with hands that no longer trembled. I'll do the transfer. I'll give you everything. But I want you to know something first. What? Jerome asked impatiently, already leaning forward to watch my screen. I want you to know that I love you. I will always love you because you're my son. But I will never forgive you for this moment, for choosing money over your own mother, for threatening me in my own home. Jerome rolled his eyes. Save the guilt trip, Mama. Just do the transfer. Monica pulled her chair closer, positioning herself so she could see my phone screen clearly. And make sure you do it right. We don't want any mistakes. I opened my banking app with deliberate slowness, letting them watch every movement. My fingers moved across the screen, entering my password, navigating to the transfer page. I could feel their hungry eyes on the screen, see Monica's breathing quicken as the numbers appeared. $45,000. My entire life savings displayed in stark black numbers. 38 years of scrubbing hotel toilets, making beds, carrying heavy vacuum cleaners up and down stairs. Every dollar represented hours of my life, sweat from my brow, pain in my back, and I was about to watch it disappear. Put in Jerome's account number, Monica instructed, reading it off from her own phone. And make sure you select immediate transfer, not the 3-day processing. I entered the numbers carefully, my finger hovering over the confirm button. This was it, the moment that would change everything. I want you both to know something, I said, looking up from the phone to meet their eyes. When I press this button, there's no going back. Are you absolutely sure this is what you want? Last chance to change your minds, to remember who we are, to remember that we're family. Mama, stop stalling, Jerome snapped. Press the button. So I did. I pressed confirm and watched as the screen processed the transaction. Within seconds, the confirmation appeared. Transfer complete. $45,000 moved from my account to Jerome's. My balance now read exactly what Monica had mocked earlier. $0 and 0 cents. For a moment, nobody spoke. Jerome grabbed his phone and checked his banking app, and when he saw the money had arrived, his face broke into a grin that made him look like a stranger. It's there, he said to Monica, showing her his screen. All of it. $45,000. They both laughed, the sound harsh and cruel, in my small living room. Monica actually clapped her hands together like a child who'd just won a prize. Well, that wasn't so hard, was it, Dolores? See what happens when you cooperate? Now we can all move forward as a family. Family, I repeated softly, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. That's when Jerome said the words I mentioned at the beginning, the words that revealed exactly who he'd become. We needed this more than you, Mama. Old folks like you don't need that much money anyway. Monica nodded, adding her poison to his. It's better off in the hands of people who are actually going to use it. I picked up my purse and stood slowly, feeling every one of my 62 years in my bones. "Then you won't care about what comes next," I murmured. They laughed, Jerome slapping his knee, Monica giggling like this was all some kind of joke, and that's when it happened. The thunderous crash as my front door burst open. 3 police officers in New Orleans Police Department uniforms flooded into my living room, led by Detective Rousseau, his badge gleaming under my ceiling light. "Nobody move," Detective Rousseau commanded, his hand on his weapon. "Jerome Patterson, Monica Patterson, you're under arrest for financial exploitation of the elderly, coercion, and theft by extortion." The look on their faces would have been funny if the situation wasn't so heartbreaking. Jerome's mouth fell open in shock. Monica actually shrieked, jumping to her feet. "What? This is insane. She gave us the money willingly. We didn't steal anything." Right behind the police came Kenneth, my good son, his face set in grim determination. And with him was Antoine Dubois, carrying a briefcase and wearing an expression that said he'd seen this play out exactly as he'd predicted. "Mama, are you all right?" Kenneth asked, coming straight to me and putting his arm around my shoulders. I leaned into him, letting myself be weak for just a moment, letting the reality of what I'd just done wash over me. "I'm all right, baby," I whispered. "I'm all right now." "You set us up," Jerome said, his voice filled with disbelief and rising anger. "You set us up. This was all a trap." "No, son," I said, my voice steady despite the tears starting to fall down my cheeks. "You set yourselves up. I just gave you the rope. You're the ones who chose to hang yourselves with it." Detective Rousseau pulled out his handcuffs. "Mr. Patterson, Mrs. Patterson, you have the right to remain silent." "This is entrapment," Monica screamed, her composure completely shattered. "You can't do this. We didn't do anything wrong." Antoine Dubois stepped forward, pulling a small recording device from his briefcase. "Actually, you did quite a lot wrong, Mrs. Patterson. And it's all on tape. Every threat, every manipulation, every word. Louisiana law is very clear about financial exploitation of the elderly. What you did tonight constitutes multiple felonies." Jerome's face had gone from shocked to pale to flushed with rage. He lunged toward me, and for a moment I saw genuine violence in his eyes, but Kenneth and one of the officers stepped between us. "You're my mother," Jerome spat. "How could you do this to your own son? I'm going to lose everything because of you." "No," I said firmly, my voice not wavering now. "You're losing everything because of you, because of the choices you made, because you decided that money was more important than integrity, than family, than love." "Mrs. Patterson, we need you to come with us to give a formal statement," Detective Rousseau said gently. "Mr. Dubois will accompany you. Kenneth, you can drive your mother if that's more comfortable." As the officers led Jerome and Monica out in handcuffs, Jerome turned back one more time. "I'll never forgive you for this," he said, his voice cold with hatred. "You just destroyed your own family." "No, Jerome," I replied, my voice breaking but my resolve solid as stone. "You destroyed it the moment you decided to steal from me. I just refused to let you get away with it." They were gone then, led out of my house and into police cars while neighbors gathered on their porches, whispering and pointing. In this neighborhood, everyone knew everyone's business, and by tomorrow morning, the whole Treme community would know what had happened at Dolores Patterson's house. Kenneth stayed with me that night, making tea and holding my hand while I gave my statement to Detective Rousseau at my kitchen table. Antoine Dubois sat across from us, taking notes and explaining what would happen next. "The district attorney will likely charge them with multiple counts," Antoine said, his voice professionally calm. "Financial exploitation of a person over 60, theft, coercion. With the recording and the documented threats, this is a strong case." "What about my money?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. "Can I get it back?" "The court will order restitution as part of any sentence," Antoine explained. But realistically, if Jerome's business is truly failing, the money may already be spent or tied up in debts. We'll freeze his accounts immediately, but recovery might take time. So I'd lost it anyway. The money was gone, maybe forever. But somehow, sitting there in my kitchen with my good son beside me and justice being served, I felt lighter than I had in months. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Jerome and Monica were formally charged. Bail was set high enough that they couldn't immediately pay it. Kenneth set up a GoFundMe to help me recover some of the stolen money, and to my shock, people donated. Friends from church, former co-workers from the hotel, even strangers who'd heard my story on the local news. Within 2 weeks, I had $12,000, not nearly what I'd lost, but enough to feel secure again. The hardest part was Isaiah and Amara. They'd been staying with Monica's mother when their parents were arrested, and Child Protective Services got involved. Kenneth and I went to court to request temporary custody, and after home visits and interviews, the judge agreed. "These children have been through enough trauma," Judge Landry said from his bench. "Mrs. Patterson, your home study came back excellent. Your background is spotless. Your younger son speaks highly of your character. I'm granting you temporary custody, pending the criminal trial." When I picked up my grandchildren from Monica's mother's house, they ran to me with tears streaming down their faces. "Grandma Dee," Isaiah cried, using the nickname they'd called me since they could talk. "Where's Mama and Daddy? Why can't we go home?" I knelt down, my knees protesting, and pulled them both into my arms. "Your Mama and Daddy made some mistakes, babies. Big mistakes. And they have to face consequences for those mistakes. But you're going to stay with me for a while, and I'm going to keep you safe." "Are they in jail?" Amara asked, her big brown eyes wide with fear and confusion. I wouldn't lie to them. "Yes, baby, they're in jail." "Because of you?" Isaiah's question cut like a knife, because I could hear Monica's poison in his words already, the story they'd probably been told. "Because of their choices," I said firmly. "Grandma didn't put them in jail. They put themselves there by doing things that hurt people." Life with 2 young children at 62 years old was harder than I'd imagined. My quiet, orderly home became chaos. Toys scattered across floors. Cartoons played on my television. I woke at 6 every morning to make breakfast and pack lunches, drove them to school, picked them up, helped with homework, made dinner, supervised baths, read bedtime stories. My body ached constantly from chasing after them, from bending down to their level, from the physical demands of active parenting. But there was also joy. Pure, unexpected joy. Isaiah's gap-toothed grin when I made his favorite pancakes. Amara's infectious giggle when we danced in the kitchen to old Fats Domino records. The warmth of them curled against me on the sofa during movie nights. The privilege of being needed, of mattering, of making a difference in their young lives. Kenneth was my rock through everything. He came by 3 times a week, taking the kids to the park so I could rest, helping with the heavy lifting I could no longer manage alone. "Mama, you're doing an amazing thing," he told me one evening as we watched Isaiah and Amara play in the backyard. "I'm just doing what needs to be done," I replied. "Those babies didn't ask for any of this. They deserve stability." "Not every grandmother would step up like this," Kenneth insisted. "Especially not after what Jerome did to you. Most people would be too angry, too hurt." "I am angry," I admitted. "I'm furious at your brother. But that anger is separate from my love for those children. They're innocent in all this." The trial came 5 months after the arrest. I had to testify, had to sit on that witness stand and tell a courtroom full of strangers about the worst night of my life. Jerome's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, as a cruel mother who'd set a trap for her struggling son. But Antoine Dubois was better. He played the recording, every damning word. He showed the documented threats from months before. He brought in a financial expert who testified about elder financial abuse patterns. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, I was sitting between Kenneth and Antoine, holding my son's hand so tightly my knuckles went white. On the count of financial exploitation of the elderly, we find the defendant Jerome Patterson guilty. My breath caught in my chest. On the count of theft by extortion, we find the defendant Jerome Patterson guilty. Monica was tried separately and convicted on similar charges. At sentencing, Judge Landry looked down at Jerome with disappointment etched on his face. "Mr. Patterson, you exploited your own mother's love for you. You threatened her, coerced her, and stole her life savings. This court has no tolerance for such behavior. I'm sentencing you to 5 years in Louisiana State Penitentiary with possibility of parole after 3 years. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution of $45,000 plus interest and court costs." Monica received 2 years with parole possible after 8 months, her sentence lighter because she had no prior record and the prosecutor believed Jerome had been the primary instigator. When the gavel came down, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not satisfaction, but profound sadness. My son was going to prison. My grandchildren's father was being taken away. Even though justice had been served, even though he deserved this consequence, my mother's heart still broke for the boy he used to be. That evening, after the sentencing, I sat on my back porch with a glass of sweet tea, watching Isaiah and Amara play with the neighbor's dog through the chain-link fence. Kenneth sat beside me in Thomas's old chair, silent solidarity in our shared grief. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Turning him in?" I thought about it for a long moment, really searched my heart for the truth. "No," I finally said. "I regret what he became. I regret that it came to this. But I don't regret protecting myself and protecting these babies from learning that stealing from family is acceptable." The weeks after sentencing were strange. I had full custody of Isaiah and Amara now, not just temporary. Their rooms in my house became permanent, their belongings spreading throughout my home like roots taking hold. I enrolled them in counseling with a therapist who specialized in children dealing with parental incarceration. At first, they were angry with me, Isaiah especially. "You sent my daddy to jail," he said one night at dinner, pushing his plate away. "I hate you." Those words hurt worse than anything Jerome had said to me, but I understood. He was 8 years old and his world had been turned upside down. "I know you're angry, baby," I said calmly, "and you have every right to be angry. But your daddy sent himself to jail by making bad choices. My job is to help you understand that and to keep you safe while he learns to make better choices." The therapy helped. Slowly, over months, Isaiah began to understand that what his parents did was wrong, that my response was protection, not punishment. Amara, being younger, adjusted more quickly. She started calling my bedroom home instead of asking when we'd go back to her house. She made friends at her new school, brought me drawings to hang on the refrigerator, started to heal in the way only children can. But the financial burden was real. My small pension and Social Security weren't designed to support 2 growing children. The donations from the GoFundMe helped, but they wouldn't last forever. I took on part-time work, light housekeeping for elderly neighbors who needed help but couldn't afford full service. It was ironic, really, spending my retirement years still cleaning houses, but it kept food on the table. Kenneth helped when he could, but he had his own bills, his own life. I refused to be a burden to my good son after my other son had tried to destroy me. What I needed was a fresh start, a place where the whispers of the neighborhood wouldn't follow us, where Isaiah and Amara wouldn't be known as the kids whose parents went to jail. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I saw an advertisement for affordable senior housing in Sedona, Arizona. Beautiful red rock formations, clear air, a completely different world from the humid streets of New Orleans. I called the number almost on impulse. The woman who answered, Claudette, had a warm voice that reminded me of my late mother. She told me about the community, about the schools nearby, about the lower cost of living, about programs that helped grandparents raising grandchildren. "We have several families like yours here," Claudette said, "grandparents stepping up when parents can't. You'd have support, community, a fresh start." The idea took root in my mind and wouldn't let go. A fresh start, away from the memories, the shame, the constant reminders of what Jerome had done. I talked to Kenneth about it one Sunday after church. "Mama, are you sure?" he asked, concern in his voice. "That's across the country. I wouldn't be able to help you as much." "Baby, you've done more than enough," I assured him. "But these children need a place where they're not defined by their parents' mistakes. I need a place where I can breathe without feeling Jerome's betrayal in every corner of my house." Kenneth understood. He always understood. We planned carefully. I sold my shotgun house in Treme, the house Thomas and I had bought 35 years ago, the house where I'd raised my sons. It hurt to let it go, to watch strangers walk through rooms filled with memories. But the sale gave me enough money to buy a small condo in Sedona and still have savings left over. Real savings this time, in an account only I could access, with protections in place so no one could ever steal from me again. We moved in the spring, loading up a U-Haul with everything that mattered and leaving behind everything that hurt. Kenneth drove with us, a cross-country trip that took 4 days and created new memories. Isaiah and Amara had never been outside Louisiana, and watching them see mountains, deserts, and wide-open spaces for the first time brought me joy I didn't know I could still feel. Sedona was everything Claudette had promised. The condo was small but bright, with windows that looked out onto red rocks that seemed to glow at sunset. The community welcomed us, other grandparents raising grandchildren, people who understood without judgment. The schools were good, with counselors trained in trauma-informed care. Claudette became not just a neighbor but a friend. She taught yoga classes at the community center and invited me to join. At first, I laughed. 62-year-old Dolores Patterson doing yoga? But I tried it and found something unexpected. Peace. In the quiet stretches, in the breathing exercises, in the gentle movements, I found pieces of myself I thought Jerome had stolen along with my money. Isaiah joined the soccer team. Amara discovered she loved art class. We developed routines, rhythms, a new normal that didn't include the weight of New Orleans watching us, judging us, whispering about us. But Jerome was still present, even in Arizona. He wrote letters from prison that arrived every few weeks. At first I threw them away unopened. I wasn't ready. But after 8 months in Sedona, after 13 months since that terrible night, I finally opened one. The letter was dated 2 weeks earlier. Jerome's handwriting, always messy, looked even more unsteady than usual. "Dear Mama," it began, and I almost stopped reading right there. But something made me continue. "I don't know if you'll even read this. I wouldn't blame you if you burned every letter I send without opening them. But I need to write these words, even if only for myself. I've been in prison for 13 months now. Every day I wake up on this hard bunk and remember what I did to you. Not what I did that got me caught, but what I became over those months before. I remember the first time I demanded your money, the look on your face when I threatened to keep the grandkids from you. I remember thinking I was justified, that I deserved that money, that you were being selfish. Mama, I was wrong about everything." The letter went on for 3 pages. Jerome wrote about the therapy program in prison, about facing the reality of who he'd become, about the shame that ate at him every day. The therapist asked me when I stopped seeing you as my mother and started seeing you as a resource to exploit. I couldn't answer because I didn't want to admit it had been gradual, that I'd been becoming this person for years. Monica and I, we fed each other's greed. We convinced each other that taking from you was somehow our right. I know now that you didn't send me to prison to punish me. You sent me here to save me from myself. If you'd given me that money, I would have wasted it. I would have come back for more. I would have destroyed any remaining love between us until there was nothing left but resentment and exploitation. You loved me enough to let me face consequences. That's more than I deserved." I cried reading those words, sitting at my small kitchen table in Arizona while my grandchildren slept peacefully in their rooms. Cried for the son I'd lost, for the years we'd never get back, for the pain we'd all endured. The letter ended with a request that broke my heart all over again. "Mama, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I want you to know that I'm voluntarily signing over my parental rights. Isaiah and Amara need stability, permanence, someone they can trust completely. That person is you, not me. I don't want them waiting for a father who let them down. I want them to have the chance to heal, to grow up with the kind of love and security you gave me before I threw it away. Please give them everything I couldn't." I held that letter for a long time, feeling its weight. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? For Jerome to take responsibility, to truly understand what he'd done. But now that it was here, written in his messy handwriting from a prison cell, it felt more sad than satisfying. I showed the letter to my therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Chen who specialized in family trauma. "How does this make you feel?" she asked in that way therapists do. "Relieved," I admitted, "and devastated. He's finally the son I raised, taking responsibility, thinking of his children first, but it took prison to get him there. It took losing everything. Sometimes people need to lose everything to find themselves again," Dr. Chen said gently. "The question is, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to respond? Did I?" I thought about it for days, praying on it the way Thomas had taught me to pray when facing hard decisions. Finally, I wrote back, "Jerome, I read your letter. I hear your words, and I believe you're sincere. That matters more than you know. I'm raising Isaiah and Amara in Arizona now. We have a good life here, peaceful and stable. They're in therapy, they're making friends, they're healing. I will accept your decision to sign over parental rights because you're right, they need permanence, but I want you to know something. When you get out of prison, if you've truly changed, if you've become the man you're claiming to be in this letter, there may be a place for you in their lives again. Not as their primary parent, that role is mine now, but as someone who made terrible mistakes and learned from them, someone who can teach them that people can change, that redemption is possible. That won't happen tomorrow or next year. It will take time, proof, consistency, but the door isn't locked forever. Your mother, Dolores." I sent the letter and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it, the first tiny crack in the wall of hurt I'd built around my heart. Monica was released from prison after serving 8 months. Her first action, through her lawyer, was to request supervised visitation with the children. The Arizona court approved 2 hours every other week, supervised by a social worker. I drove Isaiah and Amara to that first visit with my stomach in knots. They were nervous, Amara clinging to my hand, Isaiah silent and withdrawn in the back seat. Monica looked different when we arrived at the visitation center. Thinner, her hair natural instead of processed, wearing simple clothes instead of the designer labels she'd favored. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. "Hello, my babies," she said, her voice breaking when she saw them. But Amara hid behind my legs, and Isaiah just stared at her like she was a stranger. The social worker, a patient woman named Miss Rodriguez, gently encouraged them. "It's okay to feel however you feel. Your mom just wants to talk with you for a little while." I left them there, drove to a coffee shop, and tried not to imagine what was being said. When I picked them up 2 hours later, Amara had been crying. Isaiah looked angry. "How was it?" I asked carefully as we drove home through the red rocks glowing in the afternoon Sunday. "She said she was sorry," Isaiah reported flatly. "She cried a lot. She said she made bad choices, and she wants to be better." "And how did that make you feel?" "I don't know," he admitted. I'm still mad, but also, I kind of miss her. Is that weird? No, baby, I assured him. It's not weird at all. You can be mad at someone and still love them. You can want them to be better while also protecting yourself from being hurt again. The visits continued every other week, and slowly, incrementally, I watched something shift. Monica was consistent, which surprised me. She showed up on time, sober, humble. She didn't make promises she couldn't keep. She asked about their lives, their school, their friends. She listened more than she talked. After 3 months of supervised visits, Miss Rodriguez pulled me aside. Mrs. Patterson, I've been doing this work for 15 years. I've seen a lot of parents come through these doors making promises they don't keep. Monica is different. I think she's genuinely trying to change. Trying isn't the same as succeeding, I said, my guard still firmly up. You're right, Miss Rodriguez agreed. But trying consistently over time starts to look like success. I'm not saying you should trust her with unsupervised visits or anything like that. I'm just saying she's doing the work. I thought about Jerome's letter, about his claim that he was changing too. Was it possible? Could people who'd done what they did truly transform? Or was I being naive again, setting myself up to be hurt? That night, I talked to Kenneth on the phone, our weekly call that kept us connected across the miles. Mama, you don't have to make any decisions right now, he counseled. Monica can keep earning trust slowly. The kids are safe with you. Nothing has to change unless you decide it should. His wisdom, as always, grounded me. When did you get so smart? I asked with a small laugh. I learned from the best, he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. A woman who taught me that love without boundaries isn't really love at all. 6 months passed. Isaiah turned 9, and we had a birthday party with his new friends from school, kids who knew nothing about his past, who just loved playing soccer with him and trading Pokemon cards. Amara started 1st grade and came home every day bursting with stories about what she'd learned. I turned 63, and Claudette threw me a surprise party at the community center. I was surrounded by new friends, people who'd known me less than a year, but who'd embraced me and my grandchildren with open hearts. This was life now. This was healing. This was what choosing myself over enabling destruction looked like. One afternoon, I received a call from Antoine Dubois back in Louisiana. Mrs. Patterson, I have some news. The court has ordered the sale of Jerome's business assets to begin paying restitution. You should receive your first payment within the month, probably around $8,000. The rest will come in installments as assets are liquidated. $8,000. Not even a fifth of what was stolen, but more than I'd expected to see again. Thank you, Antoine, I said, for everything you did for me. You did the hard part, he replied. I just helped make sure the law worked the way it's supposed to. When the money arrived, I did something that felt important. I put half in savings for the children's future, for college or whatever dreams they'd develop. The other half I spent on our lives right now, new furniture for their rooms, a family vacation to the Grand Canyon, art supplies for Amara, and soccer equipment for Isaiah. Experiences and security, not just things. Jerome wrote regularly now, every 2 weeks, like clockwork. I read every letter, and slowly, I began to write back. Our correspondence was careful, boundaried, but real. He asked about the children, and I told him small things. Isaiah's soccer goals, Amara's art projects, nothing too personal, nothing that would make them feel exposed. He shared about his classes in prison, the carpentry program he'd joined, the books he was reading. He sent drawings for the kids, simple sketches of animals and landscapes that showed a gentleness I hadn't seen in him for years. Can we write to Daddy? Isaiah asked one day after I'd mentioned receiving another letter. I hesitated. This was a door that once opened would be hard to close. Do you want to? I asked carefully. I think so, he said. Miss Rodriguez says it might help me understand things better. And maybe if I tell him about my life, he'll see what he missed. Smart boy. So wise for 9 years old. Okay, I agreed. But we do it together. You tell me what you want to say, and I'll help you write it in a way that's safe for you. The letter Isaiah dictated was heartbreaking in its simplicity. Dear Dad, Grandma D says I can write to you. I live in Arizona now. It's pretty here with big red rocks. I play soccer and I'm getting good at it. I'm still mad at you for what you did to Grandma. She takes good care of us, but it's hard for her because she's old. I hope you're learning to be better. Love, Isaiah. I added a note of my own. Jerome. Isaiah wanted to write. I'm supervising all correspondence. Please respond appropriately. Remember that your words have power to help or hurt. Choose wisely. His response came 2 weeks later, and when I read it first to screen it, I cried. Dear Isaiah, thank you for writing to me. It means more than you know. I'm so glad you like Arizona and that you're playing soccer. I used to play soccer when I was your age too. Your grandma came to every game, even after working long shifts. She's the strongest person I know. You're right to be mad at me. What I did was wrong, and I hurt someone I love very much. I'm in here learning to be better, learning to make choices I can be proud of. I hope someday I can watch you play soccer and cheer for you like Grandma used to cheer for me. But I understand if that day never comes. Keep being a good brother to Amara. Keep helping Grandma. Keep being the good person you are. I love you, Dad. I let Isaiah read it, and he cried too. He sounds different, Isaiah said. Like he's sad, but also like he means it. People can change, baby, I said, holding him close. It doesn't erase what they did, but sometimes they can become better versions of themselves. That night, as I tucked both children into bed, I looked around at the life we'd built. This small condo in Arizona, so far from New Orleans, so different from everything I'd known. But it was ours, safe, peaceful, built on truth instead of lies, on boundaries instead of exploitation. Amara fell asleep clutching a stuffed animal Claudette had given her. Isaiah had his soccer trophy on the nightstand, gleaming in the moonlight from the window. These children had been through trauma that would have broken many adults. But they were resilient, healing, growing into people who understood that love could coexist with consequences, that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. 16 months after we moved to Arizona, something unexpected happened. I was offered a part-time job at a local community center, coordinating programs for grandparents raising grandchildren. The director, a woman who'd heard my story through Claudette, thought my experience could help others walking similar paths. We need someone who understands, she said. Someone who's lived it, survived it, and come out stronger. I took the job, and it transformed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Meeting other grandparents who'd stepped up when their own children failed, hearing their stories of betrayal and resilience, helping them navigate the legal and emotional complexity of their situations. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, using my pain to help others avoid or endure their own. Isaiah and Amara flourished. Isaiah made the all-star soccer team. Amara's art teacher said she had genuine talent and entered one of her paintings in a youth competition. They still had hard days, days when they missed their parents or struggled with the reality of their situation. But those days became less frequent, less devastating. One evening, as we sat on our small patio watching the sunset paint the red rocks in shades of orange and purple, Amara asked me a question that took my breath away. Grandma D, were you happy before we came to live with you? I thought carefully about how to answer. Why do you ask that, sweetness? Because now you smile all the time, and you sing when you cook, and you laugh with Miss Claudette. I wonder if you were lonely before. She was right. Without realizing it, I'd become a more complete version of myself. Raising my grandchildren had brought me back to life in ways I never expected. I was okay before. I told her honestly. But I'm better now. You two gave me purpose, gave me a reason to wake up excited about each day. Even though the circumstances that brought us together were painful, the life we've built is beautiful. That night, after the children went to bed, I sat at my kitchen table and reflected on the journey from that terrible October night in New Orleans to this peaceful evening in Arizona. 18 months ago, I'd been a woman living a quiet, predictable, somewhat lonely life, a widow who'd accepted that her best years were behind her. Now I was a 63-year-old woman who woke up every day with purpose, who had enormous responsibilities and even greater rewards. I was a woman who'd survived betrayal by her own son and emerged not just intact but transformed. My phone rang. It was Kenneth calling for his weekly check-in, as reliable as sunrise. "How are you, Mama? How are the kids?" "We're good, baby. Better than good. We're complete." "I'm so glad to hear that," he said, and I could hear the emotion in his voice. "And Mama, I want you to know something. I'm proud of you, incredibly proud." "Why?" I asked, though my throat was tight with feeling. "Because you took the most terrible situation imaginable and turned it into something beautiful. Because you gave those children exactly what they needed when their own parents couldn't. Because you chose yourself when it would have been easier to keep being a victim. Because you showed all of us what real strength looks like." After we hung up, I sat under the Arizona stars, listening to the soft sounds of my grandchildren sleeping in their rooms. In the silence of the desert night, I could hear something I'd been too busy to notice during the chaos of daily life. The sound of my own heart beating strong and steady, full of purpose and gratitude. The woman who'd sat at that dinner table in New Orleans 18 months ago had been a victim waiting for something bad to happen to her. Someone who'd taught her son through years of enabling that there were no real consequences for hurting her. The woman sitting on this patio was someone completely different. She was a survivor who'd turned her pain into power, her trauma into transformation, her loss into gain. She was a woman who'd learned that love without boundaries destroys everyone it touches, that protecting yourself isn't selfish, and that sometimes the hardest love is the love that says no. I thought about Jerome in his prison cell, about Monica rebuilding her life, about the long road of redemption they both faced. I thought about the money I'd lost and slowly recovered, about the security I'd rebuilt, about the life I'd created from the ashes of betrayal, and I realized something profound. Jerome had tried to steal my future that night, but he'd actually given me a gift he never intended. He'd forced me to choose myself, to draw boundaries, to stand up and say enough. In doing so, he'd freed me from the prison of being endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, endlessly diminished. I pulled out my phone and composed one final message to Jerome, words I needed to say not for his benefit but for my own. "Son, you asked in your last letter if I could ever forgive you. I want you to know that I'm working on it. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what you did. It means releasing the poison of hatred so it doesn't destroy me from the inside. I'm raising your children with love, with boundaries, with the values your father and I tried to teach you. They know what you did, and they know it was wrong. But they also know that people can change, that redemption is possible, that mistakes don't have to define us forever. When you get out, if you've truly become the man you claim to be becoming, we can talk about what role you might play in their lives. That's not a promise, it's a possibility. You'll have to earn it, prove it, live it. But the door isn't locked forever. Until then, keep doing the work. Keep becoming someone your children could be proud of. Keep learning the lessons that cost all of us so much. Your mother, Dolores." I sent the message and felt the last piece of anger release from my chest, like a bird taking flight. For the first time in 18 months, when I thought about Jerome, I didn't feel rage or betrayal. I felt sadness for what was lost and hope for what might someday be rebuilt. And more importantly, when I thought about myself, I felt pride. Pride in the woman who'd been knocked down but got back up. Pride in the grandmother who'd given her grandchildren safety when their world fell apart. Pride in the survivor who'd turned betrayal into a new beginning. That is Dolores Patterson's story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community come together over these stories about family betrayal, financial exploitation, and the moment when you have to choose between enabling destruction and demanding accountability. Real question: if you were Dolores, what would you have done? Would you have transferred the $45,000 to avoid conflict? Would you have believed Jerome's fake reconciliation dinner? Or would you have set the trap the way Dolores did and let justice take its course? Tell me in the comments. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something. Share it if you know someone dealing with adult children who see them as an ATM instead of a parent. Someone whose own family is threatening and manipulating them for money. Someone struggling with the choice between keeping peace and protecting themselves from financial abuse. And subscribe for more raw, real stories about elder financial exploitation, adult children who betray their parents' trust, the cost of setting boundaries with family, and what happens when you finally say no to people who've been taking advantage of your love. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the people you sacrifice everything for are the ones who'll try to take what's left. Sometimes being a good parent means letting your children face the consequences of their choices instead of rescuing them from their own mistakes. Sometimes love means calling the police on your own son. And sometimes the only way to save yourself is to stop being the victim and become the one who fights back. See you in the next video.